Hello and welcome back to Seagulls Central. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Adam MacDonald. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, getting involved and coming and watching this video today. If you're new, welcome to the channel if you haven't been here before. And if you are a regular viewer, thank you so much. I appreciate you as always. I appreciate everyone for coming here and getting involved. Right, let's get into it. Brighton have played another pre-season friendly today. I think this is their fourth one now. Obviously, we had the first one at the training ground, Wycombe. Then we had the two out in Marbella, obviously Las Palmas and Stoke City, the other way around, those ones. And then today, we've played a game against Coventry City, Championship side Coventry City, at the training ground in Lancing, the American Express Elite Football Performance Centre. And it's kind of been sprung on everyone. I'd found out earlier this morning, was able to watch a little bit of it. I think there's been a match report that's gone out on the website as well, so we've been able to read a little bit about it. I was kind of half watching it as I was going about my day. It's interesting. I mean, we're still at a point now where you can't fully read into it. It's hard to know, but I suppose with only 2 pre-season games left, we're getting a better idea of how we're going to be lining up going into next season. A lot of the things that I was thinking Brighton are going to do going to that first game of the season against Fulham on the 16th. In what's it? Probably like 3. Is that 3 weeks today? I think. A lot of them haven't come to fruition. For example, this back three. There's quite a few things, and in terms of players and people we're seeing or ultimately not seeing in starting 11s. It's quite interesting. So it's interesting who has been playing and who hasn't been playing. But yeah, another friendly today. 4 wins out of 4. Am I right in thinking as well? We've only maybe conceded 1 goal as well. We saw Jason Steele play again today. We didn't see Bart Verbruggen again. But it looked like a pretty solid performance from what I saw. I think Coventry City, to be fair to them, actually looked quite good for a lot of the game. And Brighton did have to dig in a little bit. But we saw players who hadn't been back for a while. We saw quite a few young players. While we talk about having a massive squad, we also did see a lot of the kind of fringe players. We saw a couple of academy players. We saw the return of players like Abdallah, Sima, Andrew Moran still getting minutes at this point in pre-season, which you think, sadly, is probably just to make up the numbers. But we're still expecting a few players back who we haven't seen really kickstart in pre-season. Sima, Kostilas, etc., etc. So I'll read out the lineups. I've just got them here in front of me. So the first half, what they did is they played a first half team, and then they made a couple of changes at half time. Hürzeler made a couple of 1 or 2 changes at half time. And then on around 65 minutes, he made a flurry of changes, basically replacing everyone else in the squad who hadn't come on yet. So first half was Steele in goal, back 4, Wiefer at right back, so Wiefer still at right back, which is interesting. We'll get into that. Lewis Dunk and Van Hecke in a 2 centre half situation. De Kuyper as left back, midfield 2, Ayari and Hinshelwood. We had Gruder playing on the right, O'Reilly at the number 10, Mitoma on the left, and Jorginho down the middle. Then just after half time, Diego Gomez came on for Mitoma, and Milner came on for O'Reilly. Sorry, that's really probably the other way around. Milner came on for Mitoma and Gomez came on for O'Reilly. We saw Milner playing at a kind of left wing position, which was interesting. But as always, he did a decent job. And then about 20 minutes later, we saw Kadioglu come on for De Kuyper at left back. We saw Simmons come on for Dunk. We saw Coppola come on for Van Hecke, which was really good to see again. Veltman came on at right back for Wiefer. Yalkule came on in central midfield for Hinshelwood. Oriola, who I've never seen play before, I thought played pretty well. I'll get onto that in a second. He came on for Gruder at the right wing. Sarmiento played number 10. Sima came on up front. And then Andrew Moran came on for Diego Gomez after about 20 minutes. So, loads of things to get into. I'm going to start with what I think are the positives. Yasin Ayari on the score sheet again. Obviously, he scored against Stoke in pre-season. I think he might have even... Did he score in the Wycombe game as well? I feel like we're seeing him score loads of goals this pre-season, creating goals. You think of the way he ended last season, particularly as well. Ended so strongly. He had a very good season overall, Yasin Ayari, for Brighton in the debut kind of Premier League season. But what we also saw was a player who was scoring a lot of goals towards the end of the season, creating a lot of goals, being a creator, and being a player who obviously we knew loved making runs into the box, loved getting forward, loved getting in and amongst it. But actually towards the end of the season, a player who was much more creative and had a real attacking output to the things that he was doing. And we're seeing this pre-season a real continuation of that, scoring another goal again today, a really good goal. It came about on the right wing, Mats Wiefer at right back playing obviously out of position. He's on the right-hand side. Then passes it to Gruder, who's then again on the right wing position. He stood on the right wing. Matt O'Reilly makes a run from kind of the number 10 position out into a wide area in the box. Gruder kind of plays it in, and O'Reilly's on the right-hand side byline, does a right-footed cross over to the far post, and Ayari is there just to head it in, nod it in, tap it in on the goal line. I mean, it's interesting the way he plays. He's so keen to make runs. He's so keen to get into the box. He's so keen to get on the end of things. He's one of those players when he'll pass the ball and he'll make that run immediately, and he'll immediately be looking for it back. And, you know, he's obviously a clever player in that sense. And we've spoken about it before, but he's clearly a player that Fabian Hürzeler really likes. You know, whenever we've seen there's an opportunity for Fabian Hürzeler to play Yasin Ayari, he takes that opportunity, he plays him. And it's nice to see. He's definitely going to be part of that starting 11 going into the start of this coming season. I imagine he'll be in that first 11 against Fulham. It is crazy, though, considering how many kind of central midfield options we have. Obviously, Baleba, Gomez, Hinshelwood, Wiefer. That actually, it looks like, I would imagine, that Baleba and Ayari will be that midfield too. Because I just think unless Ayari's injured, he always gets a game. He's continuing a brilliant pre-season. He's kicking on from last season, and I think he will go into the season as one of the starting centre mids. And I think, listen, fair play to him. And he offers something which I think you cry out for as a footballer, which is a goal-scoring midfielder. And to be fair to him, that's what he is, and that's what he's been. So I think it's brilliant. Kadioglu obviously came on in the second half, returned for his first appearance in a Brighton shirt since the back end of 2024. Came on around 60 minutes or so. Am I right in saying that? Yeah, he came on and replaced the Kuiper at left back around 60 minutes or so. And he looked good. Is one of those ones. I don't think there was really much to report from Ferdi Kadıoğlu's sense. He wasn't bombing up and down the wing. He wasn't necessarily getting crazy balls into the box. He wasn't doing anything mad. But I think what it was a sign of was that he's clearly back and he's ready to play going into this season. You know, Andy Naylor put a tweet out after Pervis Estupiñán's sale to AC Milan was confirmed, saying that, you know, Estupiñán was going to go into this season as the third choice left back behind De Kuiper and Kadioglu, who'd be battling out for that position. I would have been shocked if that's true. Pervis Estupiñán, maybe he wasn't Hürzeler's cup of tea in the end, but I would have been shocked if he was behind both of them. And maybe that suggests, and the sale of Estupiñán suggests that Brighton are really, really confident and comfortable with the fitness of Ferdi Kadıoğlu and what he can provide for us at left wing back or left back going into next season. He's obviously a player who, alongside De Kuiper, can play as a wing back or in a 4 and is a very, very strong attacking outlet in his own right. He can score goals, he can create goals, he can cut in on the right hand side, he can play at right wing back as well. He's going to have a part to play across that back line. He's a creative outlet from defence. And we saw that, and I thought it was interesting that we saw him come on at left back for De Kuiper. We didn't see him on at right wing back. We didn't see him even on like the right or left wing. We saw him at left wing back. But I'm excited to see him. There's reports. You've heard reports. You might have seen them as well around Ferdi Kadıoğlu being keen to move on from Brighton this summer. I'd be surprised if that's going to happen. I know maybe he might be thinking that, there's been reports that he can't be promised game time. I just genuinely think with a player like him who's so versatile, with injuries, with the setup that we're going to play, where you have wing backs, you have full backs, you have wingers, you have people dropping into midfield. I think there'll be, for a versatile player like him, there'll be real opportunity for him. So I think, great to see him back. I think we're going to really kick on. I would like to see him start in the game against Southampton next weekend. The 3:30 kickoff or 5 o'clock kickoff next Saturday at St Mary's. I'd like to see him play a part in that game. I'd wonder to know to what extent that will be. I would also like to see, the pairing of Charalampos Kostylas and Stefanos Simas. I'd like to see them play some part in this Southampton game, or at the very least in the Wolfsburg game. I know towards the end of the season they both had their injuries, but we've not seen them play a minute so far in this pre-season. Two big money signings who, yes, we don't have João Pedro anymore. We do have Welbeck, but we've lost Ferguson as well. Our options up front as number 9s are really Danny Welbeck and then Jorginho Rota, who can play in that number 9 and played in that number 9 today. But I do really want to see them. They don't look like they're carrying injuries or anything. I think it purely is a fact that they ended the season with niggles and injuries, and they're having to go into this pre-season just really tightly manage, both of them. It's almost like they come as two peas in a pod. We talk about them as a duo so often, but it seems like they're kind of suffering the same fate in terms of their fitness. So maybe it's a bit of a slower one for them, but I do hope that next weekend will be the start of when we can see a showing from them. Let me move on to, I've just made some notes about what. So yeah, Matt O'Reilly. I want to talk about that actually. Matt O'Reilly playing as a number 10 in this game and playing really, really well. Obviously, at the end of last season, we heard quotes from Matt O'Reilly and we heard quotes from Fabian Hürzeler talking about Matt O'Reilly, about his desire to play in the number 8 role. He didn't like how he was, a lot of the time last season when he played, particularly in the second half of the season, was having to come on at right wing, even as a number 10. He was saying he really sees himself as a number 8. Or we saw him as a number 10 today. I think it's a role he is very comfortable with. And it was interesting that we saw Jorginho Rota play as a number 9 today. Obviously, Jorginho Rota so often has played as that number 10 off someone like João Pedro or off someone like Danny Welbeck. And I think that is his best position. But he's clearly someone who can, in his own right, play up front. I thought Matt O'Reilly played very, very well. It was obviously it's a role. I'm going to be interested to see what role he has next season in terms of his position. Will he? I would be surprised if he's played in that 8 alongside a Baleba or an Ayari. Maybe when we need him. But I think Hürzeler does view him as a 10. He's in this game, he was all over the pitch. He was running about like a madman. He was heavily involved in a lot of the build-up play. He was making runs left, right and centre. He was getting the ball into the box a lot, making brilliant crosses. We saw a very good performance from him. And actually, in the last few games, we've seen him have very impactful performances in a Brighton shirt in these pre-season matches, creating goals, making assists, etc., scoring goals in his own right. So I think perhaps it seems like Fabian Hürzeler has put his trust in Matt O'Reilly this pre-season, has said to him, look, if you start the season well, this is your place to lose at the number 10 position. And obviously he suffered with that injury at the start of last season so soon after signing. And that obviously took the wind out of his sails. And I think he looked to me like his gait looked a bit funny, even in some games in the second half of the season. I felt like he might have still been carrying something. But it's good to see him back. He looks on it, he looks sharp, he looks keen to get in the box, he looks keen to cross the ball. He's always looking, he's always scanning, he's always making darting runs. I think the fact that we've seen another good performance from him today, where he looked really lively, he looked all over the place, I think that's really, really promising. One of the only real other things I wanted to talk about was obviously Brian Gruder at right wing. I think he looked decent. Still trying to really work out what Brian Gruder's best position is. I think he'd probably say it's a number 10. I think some of the best performances we've seen from Brian Gruder have been when he has been central. But we saw him again today at the right wing. He looked good. He likes taking on his man. He's very sharp. He's very technical. He played well. He obviously had Mats Wiefer behind him, who wasn't afraid to get forward and get in the box. I did think it was interesting that Mats Wiefer's playing at right back again in a back 4. Obviously, we saw him in the Las Palmas game playing at right back as well. A player who obviously has been a centre mid, and we've seen him in the Eredivisie as a centre mid. We've seen him play a few games for Brighton as a centre mid, particularly even at the start of last season. We saw him play as centre mid, but he played a lot of games fielding at right back in a back 4 last season. We've obviously seen him in this pre-season doing the exact same. He's putting in good performances, so I suppose we can't really say anything else, but I do kind of hope we see him as a centre mid, and I do hope we get the opportunity to properly watch him play as a kind of a partner to a Baleba, or I think he'd probably be a better partner to someone like an Ayari, because I think Wiefer's role is a little bit more sitting and deeping and dictating play, whilst Ayari can go and make the runs. And I think maybe in games where you need to sit in a bit more and have real control, a Baleba and a Wiefer would be excellent in terms of really keeping that ball ticking over and winning the ball back nicely. He provides options, but I wonder, I'd love to know what you think around what his position would be going into next season. Does Fabian Hürzeler view him as an option at right back, a genuine option at right back? If he does, maybe that provides a bit more clarity around Kadioglu's position. Is he going to be a left back and a left back only, or will he have an opportunity to fill in at right back, right wing back with, Wycombe competing alongside Veltman, competing alongside Hinshaw, competing alongside Lamptey? I think that's one thing that we're all going to have to get used to, and I'm still getting used to clearly, is the fact that one of the main things that was spoken about when Hürzeler came in was around the adaptability of players and how he loves players who can be flexible and play different positions. And what you're realising the more and more, as what I'm realising, the more and more I kind of speak about these friendly games in particular and trying to concoct the 11 in my head that we're going to imagine going into being our prime 11 to the start of next season, is that actually so many players can play in so many different positions, and therefore so many options that we can line up with. Brighton could play this player at right back, this player at left back, this player in central midfield, and it's generally with midfielders and defenders. I think the attackers, it's a little bit more clear cut. But Wycombe, I think Fabian Hürzeler really likes him as a right back, and I would not be surprised if we see that starting 11 on the first game at the Amex next season being Wycombe at right back. I think also what we're seeing is Lewis Dunk playing well, looking good, looking like the leader he is. Obviously starting alongside Van Hecke today, obviously then coming off around 60 minutes, and then Coppola and Simmons placing him at centre-half. Obviously really sadly losing Adam Webster to an ACL injury out in Marbella. Hopefully we don't lose him for the whole season. It would be really nice to maybe see him to the back end of this coming season. But such a shame. A player who obviously towards the latter half of last season was brilliant, found that real run of form, a player who many people had flipped and flopped with their view on him, and he had at times been a frustrating player based on how good we'd seen him be and how kind of sometimes calamitous he'd maybe been. But he looked really solid. He looked like a leader. He looked like a ball player. He looked like the prime Webster that we saw in 2021 and 2022 under those prime Potter years for him, when that England call-up was being spoken about specifically. And such a shame. A player with a real... I think he'll have the real fan base behind him. The trouble is his contract, I think, is up in 2026, and this year was probably going to be one where he was really hoping to kick on and crash on and try and kind of stake that claim and really start strongly. And I thought he looked good in pre-season. He was probably hoping to try and stake a claim for a new contract going into this season. But I think it does look like we're going to have Lewis Dunk starting alongside JP Van Hecke in a back two, obviously part of a back four for the start of next season. And maybe it's the job of Coppola and Buscagli to try and worm their way in and kind of win those positions and maybe try and then move us into a back three, which I think ultimately, look, it's interesting. We've not seen us play a back three yet, but I do think ultimately, that will be the role that Hürzeler plays, the formation that Hürzeler plays this coming season. It really just makes sense with the defenders we've got, the profiles of wing backs and centre halves that we've got. It really does make sense because Igor as well. We've not seen Igor barely at all. I don't think did he even come out to Marbella? I can't recall. I remember seeing him in the Wycombe game. He didn't feature in this game today. So much talk around his future. Obviously, Real Sociedad being on the table as a potential move for him. But yeah, lots to think about, lots to ponder. Ultimately, I don't think there's kind of a real headline in terms of anything new really coming in. Maxime de Kuyper looked decent. Loved getting up and down. Looked very energetic. But I suppose in a back four, he's a little bit more limited, isn't he? And I guess his role probably thrives a little bit more in a back three. So I'll be interested to see kind of how that plays out. Let me know, what did you think? How are you feeling about the lineup that we put out and the changes that we made? And does that speak to kind of who's first choice, who's second choice, who's the priority going into next season, and who Fabian Hürzeler has his eye on in terms of that first starting 11 against Fulham at the Amex on the 16th in 3 weeks' time? And what will happen in terms of these new signings? And it's seeming like we're moving into a back three, but we've not seen it yet. Do you think that will be something that gradually and incrementally becomes a thing in the season? Or do you think we're going to start day one of the new season with a back three? I think all the evidence we've seen so far is that that's not going to happen. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already and you found yourself watching this far in the video or you're coming back to my channel, please hit that button below, the subscribe button. It really helps me. It helps me grow this channel and continue to make videos as often as I can. I really, really appreciate all your support, all your support, all of your comments that you leave in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of this game, how you're feeling going into that first game in 3 weeks today. Obviously, the Southampton game next week, the Wolfsburg game the week after that, and then we're into the start of the season. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one, and as always, up the Albion.